Thanks everybody. Aaron McAlister. I am the Deputy Fire Chief, Contra Costa County Fire. I currently, I was, I was just saying before we started the meeting, I was previously the only deputy chief, but now that through the merger and a little bit of reorganization, we now have 3 deputy chiefs. So I am one of the 3 deputy chiefs, and I oversee administration, which is personnel, support services, which is everything, facilities, equipment, our shop, logistics. We run a warehouse and a whole mail operation that covers every fire station twice a week, in our dispatch center. So everything admin, finance, human resources. So that's kind of my area of responsibility. Started in the fire service when I was 14 years old, and fortunate to come to Contra Costa Fire 6 years ago as an assistant chief. So mission, vision, but what we're really here to talk about today is the annexation of East Contra Costa Fire. It's not every day that 2 fire departments merge, and not very common in one's fire service career to actually be a part of that. So very exciting. I know it's been talked about in this county for many, many years, decades actually. And I am aware of the history here, even though I wasn't part of it at the time. I was always aware of, in fire department circles, which tend to be fairly small, how important this issue was and the deficient services that existed in East Contra Costa. So the way we describe it is that we had been engaged to be married for about 18 to 24 months, and the marriage occurred on July 1. So at that point, all of their employees became ours at midnight. We assumed full legal responsibility for everything fire, fire prevention, fire investigation on July 1. And their budget was merged into ours. There's a little bit of cleanup that occurs at the State Board of Equalization, but all that's in progress. Yeah, been a long-standing effort. Some of the immediate improvements that we're going to see in East Contra Costa, which is Oakley, Brentwood, Knightson, Discovery Bay, the Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory area, and Bethel Island. We actually opened a fire station in Oakley near Bethel Island on June 1st, 1 month before the actual merger. Since we were headed down this path, we knew where we were going. We planned for that. We put the additional bodies in our fire academy that were needed to open that fire station. That station opened on June 1, just in time for kind of our peak summer months where we see increased activity from wildland fire. That station also opened on June 1 with advanced life support services, which historically East Contra Costa did not provide. So that station went June 1, and then on July 1, one of the Brentwood fire stations went advanced life support. So of the 4 fire stations currently operating in the previous East Contra Costa footprint, 2 of them are offering advanced life support services on a 24/7 basis, and we're adding additional as time goes on. As we add more staff through fire academies and we get more paramedics in our organization, those stations will be upgraded, the last 2 over the next 24 months. So, I mean, really, what does this mean to Concord, right? And the rest of the county? Is this going to be a boat anchor on us? Are we constantly going to be sending resources out there? No. The reality was, if we did nothing, yes, it was going to be this continuous boat anchor. We had gotten noisy about constantly supplying mutual aid that was out of balance. Most mutual aid agreements are fairly reciprocal. You send me resources, I'll send you resources. But when that gets out of balance and one community starts subsidizing the other, then we have a problem. So we put them on notice that we had a problem a couple of years ago. Really, the magic behind this and what made it work was the Measure X dollars that are supporting some of these fire stations, but not all of them, and then some capital construction money. But as we look at the county, Confire, we're kind of the smaller player over on the west side. You see just 2 stations in El Sobrante and San Pablo. And then we get to Central County. We have the bulk of Central County. Moraga Orinda has their own fire district, and the San Ramon Valley has their own fire district. But we have most of Central County. We have all of Battalion 8, which is Antioch and Pittsburgh, and we have all of now East Contra Costa, or Far East, as sometimes we call it here at the fire department. But what does this mean to Concord? This means that previously we would drain resources from Antioch and Pittsburgh to go assist in Oakley, Brentwood, Knightson when they had major incidents. And because we drained Antioch and Pittsburgh, we were constantly sending resources into that community, or over the hill as we call it, in order to have some level of coverage. So just because there was a major fire in Brentwood actually translated to we were losing engine 6 or engine 8, sometimes engine 22, to move over into Antioch and Pittsburgh because of that major incident 3 towns away. By increasing the resources in East Contra Costa and adding more stations, Concord is going to get to actually keep their resources at home more often available for emergencies in Concord. This would not have been possible without really some visionary leadership that came together, both from the fire service agencies. I mean, East Contra Costa had a fire chief that stood up and raised his hand and said, yes, I'm willing to not be the #1 guy anymore. It's not about my ego. It's not about my position. This is the best thing for the community. So Chief Helmick is now a deputy fire chief with Contra Costa County Fire. The elected officials had to say, yes, we're in, we're willing to do this, we're going to support this, we're going to support it financially, and this is the right thing to do. And then the residents are really the winners out of this. So we're seeing immediate improvements in terms of fire and EMS delivery services. Confire was already providing the ambulance service through the Alliance, our partnership with American Medical Response. And we were already providing the dispatch services. So a lot of this just really made sense. It's not all about East County. Confire is going to open Fire Station 4 in unincorporated Walnut Creek in the next 30 days. We're really shooting for the end of July. We have a lot of construction that's in progress. That station had been dormant for some time, and we're finally restoring that service in that community. Again, by adding more resources in Central County, we're going to have more available here. And we're planning for the construction of 2 fire stations in Brentwood, where we're going to add more facilities. In turn, we will add more equipment and staffing. So what do we look like today? So geographically, it was a 45% increase, but as we know, the areas out in East Contra Costa are not nearly as dense and not nearly as populated, but we went from 304 to 553 acres. Our permanent resident population is somewhere about 750, but we know that increases during the day with some of the business that occurs in mostly Central County. Previously, we supported 9 cities and had those partner relationships with 9 cities. They're not contracts, but they're certainly partners in the service that we provide. Now we serve 11 cities in the unincorporated area to a lot of the county. 30 fire stations after we opened Fire Station 4. That's a 15% increase in the number of stations. 33 crews on duty, up from 29, and today we're right about 500 employees. We're almost through the presentation. I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death, but it is important to note we are on a very similar path with the city of Pinole. Pinole is historically a 1-station fire department. They do own 2. They can't afford to run 2. They can afford to run about 1.5. The Board of Supervisors was willing to put in a little bit of money from Measure X to help close the gap, but they're coming into Confire. So Confire will operate 2 additional companies on the west side, and Pinole will not run their own fire department. That agreement's potentially going to the Pinole City Council and the Contra Costa County Board in September, with a potential implementation date of January 1, possibly March 1. We're a little unsure. But we will operate what used to be the Pinole Fire Department with 2 crews out there. If you paid any attention and seen kind of the west side, it really is a patchwork of protection on the west side. So unifying the what we call Battalion 7 over on the west, it goes all the way back to the double line of duty death that occurred in 2007, where 2 Confire members lost their life in a fire. And a lot of the reports that came out after that fire talked about the complications of a rainbow response of a first alarm incident that is made up of some Richmond units, some Rodeo Hercules, some Pinole, and some Contra. And that's how we do business on the west side, but there are consequences from that. It gets a little bit complicated when multiple agencies involved. So here we are in another very challenging fire season. It comes at a very good time that we are actually adding resources to the county. This map is a map of fire hazard severity zones within the Contra Costa County. We do have some very high zones. Those zones are going to get redone later this year. We've been anticipating that for over 5 years, that CAL FIRE redoes those zones. Looking at the history where fires have blown into really urban communities, we expect those zones to get expanded significantly in our county. So we're all waiting to see those maps when they come out. And that potential exists here every day in the fire season. We've been very fortunate the last few years that we haven't seen the devastation that other counties have, but we certainly have that threat here. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. I thought there was something out that potentially the Rodeo Hercules may be in the works, or at least some negotiations or talks. Is that in fact the case?
So when we started this process with East Contra Costa, it was both. It was East Contra Costa and Rodeo Hercules. And then at one point, the board, an independently elected board of directors at the Rodeo Hercules Fire District, there was a very vocal, dare I say, minority, a group of citizens that spoke at many of their meetings, and I think the board opted out. And I truly believe that there's a lot of benefits from that. Coming to the larger organization, you have economy of scale. We have a full-time training division. We have a full-time maintenance shop with mechanics that all they do is work on fire engines. They don't work on garbage trucks one day, buses another day, and fire engines casually. They work on fire engines all day, every day. There are a lot of benefits to coming to an organization such as Confire that has the depth to do some of these things. But they're going through a strategic planning process in Rodeo Hercules, and maybe they come back to us. But ultimately, it's that decision for that community. I do want to put out, we've got some facility challenges in Concord. We've been in conversations with the city of Concord. So Fire Station 6 downtown on Todos Santos Plaza, very cool fire station. Very sought after assignment here at Confire. A lot of people want to work there, mostly senior members in each rank work at that station. A lot of history there, and very dedicated members that work there. It's one of our busiest stations. In fact, it's one of the busiest stations in the country, quite frankly. But the station is ancient and will not serve our needs forever. And the two units that are there literally have to squeeze in there within a few inches of each other. So we will have to replace that station at some point in the future, as we will have to replace Fire Station 8 out on Clayton Road. That station is also pretty old. It's of the generation that we are currently replacing, and we'll be looking for new sites at some point for both 6 and Station 8 in the future.
So, Aaron, I sit on the Measure X Citizens Advisory Board, so I'm hearing all kinds of pleas and presentations for different sales tax money. So that's where my question comes from. Just also as a citizen and taxpayer, is there a plan in place for doing what it is you want, changing out the building, basically a capital campaign? Is there a plan, or is it just talk at this point? It's a wish list.
So yeah, I know the fire chiefs tried to present a unified front in the original rounds, that we came together collectively and had a unified voice and made a pitch. Not everything made it, and that got whittled down. But yeah, we're looking forward to future opportunities to present on other options in the future.
But my question is there a plan in place for what's the money needed for, like right now? Like Measure X is gone. I mean, it's already been allocated. So what's the plan now is really what I'm asking on behalf of those citizens, you know, that just came on board.
Yeah, so we did set aside some funding in next year's budget to acquire the site for whether it's 6 or 8. So we do have money available to make a purchase. How we've been funding fire station replacements, both 86 and Bay Point, which is going to open in the next 30 days. And then Fire Station 9 at the airport, we borrowed the money. Now, money was relatively cheap 2 years ago when we borrowed the money. So I don't know what that looks like going forward, but there are some funds at Confire that are available for capital projects.
Okay, I was just curious if there was some forethought forces and not trying to pin you down.
Yeah.
Just wondering if there's a direction and a vision.
Yeah, no, we put aside money to make a purchase next year. We don't have a site identified, but we do have the dollars in the budget.
All right, thank you.
I don't know if you can speak to the joint venture with AMR and how that revenue impacts the budget. What, is it been a positive to the district?
I think it's been phenomenally successful. It's positive to the district. It's positive to the citizens that we serve. During the pandemic, we were able to do some very creative things. When we saw long response times and huge call impacts where calls for service spiked, we went out and hired other companies. Now, most companies would want to keep it in the family, and we went out and hired basically their competitors, and they work side by side because they work for us. They're dispatched by us. We controlled the resources, and we brought in other companies. Now, we gave AMR the opportunity. A lot of companies had a difficult time staffing and difficult time hiring people, and they had the chance. So it's not like we cut them out of anything, but we got creative, we got collaborative, and we brought in some other companies to handle the surge capacity that we saw during some of those spikes in calls for service, and it was very successful. We're also working on some pretty creative stuff. We're trying to put physicians or nurse practitioners or nurses in our dispatch center. Not everybody needs a ride to the hospital. Sometimes they need a ride to a sobering center. Sometimes they need mental health counseling. So we've been at the table with health. We've got a little money put aside to participate in some of these creative collaborative things, but it's very successful for the people of the county. My office thinks I died in here if I don't move around a little bit. I'll touch on something controversial that impacts Concord and impacts us quite a bit, and that's the homeless population and the outside fires. So we have a ton of people living in spaces that weren't designed to have people living in. Sometimes their fires are cooking fires, sometimes they're benign, but other times they're hostile fires that do damage and cause destruction. Sometimes they're fires that are intentionally set because of wars amongst the homeless population.
Hello there.
So our calls for service has spiked over the last 3 years. We have the data. The exterior fires are very challenging for us. It's driving calls for service and presents us challenges.
Are most of those fires seem to be along what I would say state-owned property or controlled property?
Yeah, they're in the usual locations, and sometimes they escape and cause larger grass fires. In the wintertime, we actually don't go to some of those calls. If all the grass is green and it's near an overpass in one of the normal locations, we actually don't go.
I assume there's no recourse against the state for not policing those areas.
Yeah, I don't know about state recourse, but I can tell you that we make on average 1 to 2 arrests on intentionally set fires a week. We have full-time fire investigators, and that's all they do.
Are you also, oh, go ahead, Tamara.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm so glad. I'm Tamara. I live in your district now. We live on a Morgan Territory Road, and East County has done a Herculean job with the limited resources they have. So, but it was too big, the district.
Yeah.
Too big and not enough money. I mean, it was really a pretty simple problem, but we're happy, very, very happy that that the annexation has taken place, and a lot, I know my neighbors, excuse me, feel the same. And I want to apologize for being late. I got stuck on behind road work on Marsh Creek Road, which is happening to make us all safer, but it still slowed me down. Just thank you very much for all of you, East County, Brian, the chief, everybody, for working as hard as you did to make this happen. It was complicated. It was not an easy chore, easy task to accomplish. And I really appreciate everybody's putting their egos aside and just going for the finish line.
Thank you. You may be familiar with what we call the Amador contract, which
Oh
is
my gosh, yes. And that was my first question.
contract staffing for the CAL FIRE Sunshine Station. And we are
Right.
going to continue with that.
Yes.
So we will actually pay CAL FIRE to keep that fire station staffed during the winter months. So the state pays for it during the summer months, but we pay the difference to keep them there in the winter to help us cover that area with us.
It's an incredibly reasonable amount. I was shocked at how little it really does cost to provide that protection year round. The last time I looked, Amador contract was what, $500,000
Yeah.
or less?
Yeah.
Yeah, someplace around $500,000 to keep it fully staffed and keep it open. A lot less than costs a lot less than opening another station.
They are good partners.
Any other questions or comments?
I probably missed it in the first part of the presentation, but did everybody from East County get absorbed into Confire?
All of the line staff, the operational staff, everybody came over. We had a place for all of the administrative staff, but some chose not to come over. But if they wanted to, everybody had a place.
Everybody had a place.
Yeah.
What is the hiring looking like right now for firefighters?
That was my next question.
You know, when I was 18, 19, 20, I stood in line with thousands of people in lines that wrapped around a block to get into a community center. And it's not that way anymore. We used to see 3,000 people apply for firefighter positions, and now it's in the hundreds, paramedics even less. So it's pretty challenging for us. The cycle that we've been running at Confire the last few years is 2 academies a year. One of them being an entry-level academy where virtually no experience, but people probably have some EMT, ambulance experience, maybe volunteer experience. And then we'll run a lateral academy. So that's one of the benefits that we have at Confire is that you'll commonly hear us refer to either ourselves or other people call us a destination organization, which is a place that people really want to do 20, 25, 30 years and retire from this organization. There's a lot of opportunity here. If you're a firefighter, you probably desire to be active and go to a lot of calls. We offer that. We're a busy place and we have a lot of specialty programs. If you want to be a bulldozer operator, we can do that. If you want to work on a hand crew and do a lot of wildland related firefighting, we can do that. We have a boat program, keep a boat in the marina at the Pittsburgh Marina. We participated in the recent dock fire that occurred in Benicia. So a lot of specialty programs here. So we have been fairly successful at attracting lateral firefighter candidates. And it's unfortunate we're robbing them from other organizations, but they do want to come here. So That's been our strategy the last couple of years.
Apologize for that.
Oh, Brian, you are squeaky. If you want to put it in the chat, I'll read it for you, or then we can see it.
You probably know we're a special district, much like a cemetery district or a school district. We're actually not a county department. We are governed by a fire district board that happens to be the same 5 members that is the board of supervisors. But technically, when they're meeting, they're wearing a different hat as a member of the board of directors.
Any other questions? I think we might be waiting on Brian's.
So new fire engines today are running about $850,000, and a new ladder truck is about 1.7 million. We do have a ladder truck on order that's going to go out to East Contra Costa. It takes 18 to 24 months to take delivery of that vehicle, so we may put something out there before we actually get the new one. But we do have one on order, and that's part of our plan, is to add that aerial ladder capability to East Contra Costa.
Okay, Brian said, I probably missed it early on. Has there been any discussion of identifying perpetrators of fireworks ignitions and securing restitution for fire services required as a result?
Yeah, that's a tough one. 4th of July is so crazy busy. Citations get issued. We try to do some operations on the front end. So we were involved in a very large seizure, like U-Haul trucks full of commercial grade fireworks in San Pablo. So we prevented some of that stuff from reaching the street. But that night, yeah, thank you. That night, it is so difficult. We're literally going from call to call to call. So we pick up what we can. Local law enforcement picks up what they can. We need to stay available for that next emergency, so we're not getting too tied up in any one case. But we had some success in undercover operations. Yeah, fire chief's talking about taking another measure back to the board to actually increase citations. We were kind of fortunate this year that the weather was in our favor this 4th of July. It was very calm, very cool. But the measure the chief's going to take back is to increase the fines and penalties. So we may ramp that up a little bit. Yeah.
Are you able to, excuse me, are you able to catch them though? The fines are great if you can nail them in the act, but how many are you actually able to identify and catch?
Right. So it's an all hands effort on 4th of July. The chief and I and every chief officer's on duty. We're worried about 2 things, both fireworks enforcement that our investigators are handling, but also responses. So our 5 investigators, even though they're all in that night, they're going to call with us, because we want to get in early on a major incident so that we can identify causes of the major incident in case it goes big and does damage. So their challenge is not to get anchored in at any one location, because they might be doing some enforcement activity, but miss getting in on a major incident early that's going to do serious damage, and there's valuable evidentiary things that are lost if they're not in there pretty early. So yeah, we try.
Any other questions or comments?
I do.
Sure.
What is happening with inspections and enforcement, at least out here? That's question number 1. Are they going to start? Have they started? Question number 2 is, I know that there's some issue in getting enforcement in the SRA, the State Resource Agency. Does Confires have the same constraints as East County did in terms of enforcement in the State Resource Agency. I know there's been some bumping heads or bumping authorities over that, but initially my question is the inspections and enforcement.
Yeah, so that's just a coordination piece. I mean, Confire has the ability to enforce state law in the state responsibility area. There is a very large regional park district that doesn't agree with that.
I know.
But as far as Confire conducting enforcement activities in the SRA, we don't see that as a barrier or a problem. So we will continue inspections. East Contra Costa started all the annual weed abatement inspections. We will continue that. We inherited all of those programs and their people that did those inspections. And we will send out weed abatement contractors if they fail to comply with our friendly requests.
Okay, and the concern with for mine, I won't speak for anybody else, but mine is the timeline between identifying the incident or the danger and the due process, which I know is necessary, but it's between that point. By the time anything happens, it's November, and it was going to, if it's going to burn down, it would have by then. Is there anything that, any pressure that we can apply to the Board of Supervisors or that you can to shorten that time between identifying a non-compliance issue and actually abating it?
I think the trick is starting early, and we started early this year because of the drought conditions. Those timelines are prescribed by law, whether it's state law or in our local ordinance. But we took 75 parcels to our fire commission just 2 weeks ago that were out of compliance and they were entitled to their hearing. They got their hearing, nobody actually showed up, and all 75 are being given to the weed abatement contractor. So they're starting now.
Good.
So the trick is to start early as much as possible.
Brian had another question in the chat. Does it make sense to work on setting up a joint operation with local PD and sheriffs to cover more territory?
Specific to 4th of July?
Yes, for the fireworks issue.
Yeah, we talk, we coordinate, we do a joint press conference. They step up enforcement as well. Their city councils are hearing the same thing that the rest of us are, that, people want action. The real, if there's a silver bullet here, we need to stop selling fireworks in California.
Yeah.
That needs to
Yes.
happen at the state level.
Yes.
Good luck. We've got people on, literally 6 or 7 people just on our block firing off skyrockets. Not just the 4th of July, but several weeks before, and even now they're still doing it. You call, you report, still they do it.
Yeah, and again, law enforcement's going call to call to call on 4th of July. So, we are marginally effective on the holiday itself.
I have one more question too, and the Firewise program that I think is not a state program, and then the individual neighborhoods partner. I'm mechanically how that the individual neighborhoods have partnered with the fire district.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay. Are those will the Firewise programs be promoted and available to the neighborhoods next year? It's been slow this year because of the annexation. There just weren't enough people to do everything. But we would really benefit from an active Firewise program out here. I think we get a lot of neighbor cooperation if it was a little more organized.
Yeah. No. Those are great programs. We have a couple in existence, and we'd love to see more. So
Okay.
they're really boots on the ground, neighborhood driven, right?
Right.
People that come together in a neighborhood and they want to do something.
Right.
And we're happy to sponsor, coordinate, participate. We actually have some Measure X dollars that are dedicated to fire prevention. We can help fund chipping days, dumpsters. We can send the hand crew out if they're not dedicated to some other project or on a fire. So we can do a lot to help too. So
Is
yeah,
there somebody at Confire that I should be talking to other than you at this point?
yeah, the fire marshal is Chris Bachman,
Oh, okay.
Bachman.
Okay.
And I think his email is cbach, CBACH ch@cccfpd.org.
Great. We,
Yeah.
we kind of done our own neighborhood, not Firewise program, but we'll look forward to getting some help from Contra next year, just in kind of putting together the Morgan Territory Marsh Creek neighbors. And until COVID, we were having that annual meeting, at Contra at the Sunshine Station. And with East County's participation, of course, and Contra. So that was pretty successful in terms of getting the neighbors' attention, getting the residents' attention and focused on fire district. It's been harder to do that with COVID, trying to get people on Zoom to do it and to muster up the energy that is needed to keep people focused early on. We've been doing that meeting first part of May. So we look forward next year, and I guess Chris Bachman would be who I talk to also.
We've actually been discussing having a community meeting out there in
Oh,
August.
great. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so
Sue
a little bit
Thompson-
fire prevention, a little bit high where your new fire department.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Who would I be? Sue Thompson and I generally, she'll be on your advisory board. So she'll get that information
Yeah, coordinate with Chris and I.
with Chris and you. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Any other comments or questions? No?
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for the time today. Appreciate the opportunity to kind of share what we're up to.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I can apologize for being late.
Yes, thank you again. And we'll have this recorded and we'll be able to push this out. So if anyone missed pieces of it, we will have that so you can rewatch it. But thank you again, Deputy Chief, for taking the time to present to our group as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We do have Colleen on. I see she just, she came back and she knew. Do you have any updates for us that you'd like to share?
Just two quick updates today.
Sure.
The Contra Costa Board of Supervisors next Tuesday we'll be having our annual Truth Act Forum. This is the annual forum every year where county departments report out on their interactions with ICE. It's part of a state law that was passed back in 2018. So that will be at 9 o'clock this coming Tuesday, the 26th. And then the other big announcement that's happened recently in our district is the Pleasant Hill Library just opened their new location. So their new building is just about done. So they had a big grand opening ceremony that'll be coming up. That'll be coming up on Saturday, the July 30th. So they're getting ready for that. But those are the two big upcoming things in our district. If you have any questions about county issues, y'all know where to find me and have my contact information. So